Hello everyone and welcome to Project Insights Product Training Webinar. The topic for today is managing fixed price projects. Just a few things to note before we get started. All participants will be put on mute. However, any questions you have are more than welcome. Please go ahead and type those into your question box, which you can find on your GoToWebinar dashboard. We will try to answer all of your questions during the session, but if we can't, we'll make sure to get to you through email before the end of the day, or you can also feel free to email us your questions at info@projectinsight.net. Also, do know this webinar recording will be available within our Project Insight community. My name is Denise, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm on the marketing team here at Project Insight. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to reach me at denise.rodriguez@projectinsight.com. Our presenter and trainer for today will be Angie Smith. She is our partner out in Canada, and she is also PNP certified. Some of the benefits of today's webinar is to learn how to leverage the software to manage fixed price projects and to understand how to set up milestone billing. On our agenda today, we'll go over how to set up and save a quick selection for fixed price projects, enter task and planned cost, set up milestone billing task with alerts, enter and track hard cost, create and save portfolio reports with appropriate data columns. So with that said, I'm happy to hand this over on to Angie to continue with the rest of today's webinar. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so everybody should be seeing my screen now, and it'll be the Project Insight dashboard. Now, for organizations that bill external clients for project work, a fixed price or fixed bid is very common.
Hey, Angie?
Oh, yes.
We're not seeing your screen. There we go.
Oh, taking a while? Okay, you got it now? Okay,
yes,
thanks. Perfect. Thanks, Denise. Okay, so a fixed price is when you agree with your customer what is going to be the predetermined amount that you're going to bill them for the work you are doing. Now, this may be a total fixed price for the entire project, or more commonly, it may be a fixed price for each milestone or deliverable. And this is very different from a time and materials project, where you bill for the work as it occurs. Now, with fixed price projects, it is crucial that you have a solid estimate on which you are basing your fixed price. If you don't, you could lose money or create unhappy customers because you need to go back to them mid-project and try and negotiate for more money to complete it. Now, Project Insight can help you create more accurate bottom-up budgets on which to base your fixed price, and then it has functionality to help you manage that fixed price as the project progresses. Now, billing at the right time and billing with the right deliverables and milestones is critical, and you want to measure that fixed price against what your cost and what your actual billable would be if you were in fact billing based on time and materials. Now, what you can see here on the dashboard is a planned profit chart, and it is showing you which of your fixed price projects is most profitable. So you can see here that our very first project, which is our database development project, is the most profitable, with our office move project being the least profitable. So, you do want to probably focus on your more profitable projects, which means you might be wanting to assign your more senior team members to it, or maybe have it first up in your schedule, all that kind of thing. So that'll give you some information on which to base your decisions. So to add a new fixed price project, let's go ahead and expand the left navigation. Then we're going to click on Folders to expand out that section. And we're going to go ahead and click on Projects. Then we'll go and we'll hover on the Add Project icon, and we'll select to add a project. And I always like to collapse my left navigation to give me more room to work with. So we're going to enter in the project name, such as Fixed Price Software Development. And I'm actually going to put it for Customer ABC. And I'm going to put that right in the name. Then in my drop down here where it says Copy from Template, I'm going to click in that, and I'm going to select our software development template. Now, this is an advantage of using Project Insight. For projects with similar type tasks, you can set up a template and then rapidly create a project from that template. Then you can make adjustments to the project to reflect the current goals and deliverables by changing estimated hours of work and adding or removing tasks. And doing this gives you bottom-up detailed estimates for your time and material metrics automatically. Then you can use these time and material metrics to compare to your fixed price or to even determine what your fixed price should be. All right, so I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to copy my target budget because I want that copied over. And I also want to set this to be an active project. Now, if you do need some more information about how to build your first project, there is a separate training video available for that. And you can access that actually directly by clicking on this link down at the bottom of the page. But for now, let's hover on the Save icon and click Save and Display Project. Then it's going to go through and create our project, and it's going to have all the common tasks associated with a software development project. And you can see these are common tasks such as the scoping activities, analysis and requirements, design, development, testing, training, documentation, and so on. And right now what you're seeing here on the task list is all the summary tasks. Now, summary tasks on a fixed price project usually represent a billing cycle. For example, after you complete all the work in this scoping section, then you're going to be able to bill the client for that work. After you complete all the work in the analysis and software requirements section, then you can bill the client for that work, and then for design, then for development, and so on. Now, if you click on the arrow next to a summary task, it expands it out, and you're able to see all the detailed tasks that are in that summary task. And these define the actual work that must be done to complete the scoping activity. Now, you do have some other information for each detailed task, such as the amount of work hours you think it's going to take to complete that task, and over what period of time that work will take place, which is the duration. Now, in each section, you will also have a milestone task, and it is normally the last task in that section, although it doesn't have to be. It is a best practice, though, that you usually want your billing task as the last task in that section. So in our case, we have a scope complete task, and that's the milestone task that's going to be used as your indicator to state when that work in that section is complete. And when that work is complete, then you can then bill the client the fixed price that you agreed to bill them for this phase. Now, before you see how to do that, you're going to see some navigation and time-saving features that's going to help you manage your fixed price projects. Now, when a new project is created, like we just did, it uses a planning view that is one of the system default views to display your task list information. So that's what's showing here, the columns of data that are set up in that default planning view. So that includes your duration and your work hours and start date and end date and resources and predecessors. Now, it is possible that your system administrator may have also created a default view for your organization. And if that is the case, then that view is going to display instead. And that view may be great for most of your work, but it is highly likely that you will want to create a view designed specifically for you to manage the financial data of a fixed price project. So as you can see on this default planning view, there isn't really any financial metrics except for this one here called work hours. And if I just hover my cursor on the blue header bar, I can actually drag it a little bit wider so I can actually see the full text label. And these work hours are used to calculate estimated cost and billable amounts. So you will want to change this view so that you can see financial data and other columns of data important to a fixed price project. So in this training session, you are going to concentrate on fixed price billing data, not any kind of costing data. And if you want to have a look at the costing side of it, that is covered in some more detail in some other training sessions. So specifically the one called Managing the Project Plan versus Actuals. So we'll concentrate on the billing side of things. And to show the fixed price billable financial data on your task list view, go ahead and click on the Display Options icon. Then you want to make sure this section called Column Selection Options is expanded out. So if it's not already expanded, if it looks something like this, then just click on the blue header bar of that section to expand it out. And then you'll be able to see, what are the current selected columns of data that are showing, and what are also all the available columns that you can display. So when you're managing fixed price projects, you will want to know which of your tasks on the projects are set as milestone tasks. And a milestone task on a fixed price project usually indicates a billing event. So in our available columns, we're going to scroll down until we reach the columns that start with the letter I. And then you'll see that when we get there, there is one called Indicator Milestone. So let's double click on that, and that moves it over to our selected columns. Now by default, it did put it right at the very end of all of our existing columns. But if you didn't want it there, you can just simply click on it and then click on the up and down arrow keys to reposition it. And I'm actually going to pull it right up to the very top and make it the second column in the list. And you'll see a quicker way that you can do this in a few minutes. Now any team member or stakeholder or even your customers that have permission to view this task list can change what column of data they want to appear on the view. You don't need a system administrator or developer or professional services to change your views. You can do it yourselves. Of course, you can only change your view to see the data that you have access to. So on a project, only a project manager can see the financial data. A team member or a project scheduler can't. And there are some other system role options you can turn on to enable your executive types to see financial data as well. And again, that's covered in some other training sessions. So let's go ahead and click on our update icon so we can see what this now looks like. Over here as our second column, it's an indicator. And again, if I click and drag in the blue header bar, I can make it a little bit wider so I can see the full label. And this column, this indicator milestone column, if a task has been flagged as a milestone, it's going to have this symbol in this column. So you can see that the scope complete task is a milestone. And also, if we look right now down here, the closing meeting task is set as a milestone as well. So now you know what this column is. You can drag this header smaller because you probably don't want it that big. So you probably want it more like something like that so you can see right away visually which ones are milestones. And Project Insight will remember these settings the next time you display the project. Now, in your template, these billing milestones were already set up. So that's a big advantage. You don't have to go through and figure it all out from scratch. And that saves you time and ensures your processes are being followed. However, if you did have to add in a new section or you didn't have templates because it is a project maybe you've never done before and you needed to put in your own milestones, then it's simple to do that. And all you have to do is add in the task and then right-click on the task, hover on your Edit Task Inline, and click on Edit Advanced Options. Then on the Advanced Options form, you want to ensure this option here called Milestone is checked, and that designates this task as a milestone task. And this might look a little bit differently if you're looking at a summary task, but basically that's how it'll look, is you'll have a milestone task. Just check on that to put a check mark in there if it's not already turned on. And simply click Save. And that's how you can set a milestone task. Now, if you're adding in a completely new task, you'll have, such as down here, like if we started typing in, a new task down here at the very bottom, we can also click on this icon that's available when you're adding a new task, and also designated as a summary as well. So that's another tip for you to set a task as a milestone when you're entering it. And then just go ahead and click Save. But I'm not going to add that new task in. I'm actually going to cancel that. But that's just another way that you can set a task as a milestone task. Now, another financial metric that is important for fixed price projects is the amount that you plan on billing the customer for each task. So you want to view that. So let's go back to the display options icon. And this time, let's not add our new columns right at the very end. Let's tell Project Insight where we want to position them initially. And you do that by clicking on the column that you want to insert the new column before. So we're going to click on the start date because the new fields that we want to insert or the new columns that we want to insert, we're going to put it right before that. So we click on the start date. Then in our available columns, instead of scrolling, we can just click anywhere in there and then type in the letter of the column that you want to go to. So I typed in W, so it takes me automatically down to the columns that start with W. And then I can just scroll a little bit down, and we're looking for something called Work Billable. So here's all these Work Billable fields here. So we're going to add in our, first of all, our work billable rate. So we'll double click on that first, and you can see it moved it over here just before the start date. Then we're going to put in our work billable time, our work billable expense, and our work billable total. So those new columns get inserted in order just before the highlighted field, which was the start date. So that's an easy way to insert columns in the correct position. Just click on the field in the selected columns, and then they'll get inserted directly before that. And then just insert them in the order you want them to appear. Now, another thing you can do is remove some of the columns of data from this view that you don't need at this time. So if you're doing work on setting up your fixed price, you probably don't care about things like the duration. So let's double click on that to get rid of it. We can also remove the start and end date because it's not that important at this point and with this activities that we're doing. And we'll also get rid of the predecessors column. Now remember, you can always add those back in or switch to another view to see those again. We're just removing it from the current view that we're working with. Then we click our Update Display icon. And then again, we can just hover in the blue header bar and drag those fields a little bit bigger so that we can see the full labels. Now the work billable amounts are the total amount of labor and expenses that you plan on billing the client for the task. And the details about all of these values are calculated in detail in another training session called Managing Project Budgets for Professional Services. So we're not going to go into them in a huge amount of detail here, but basically it's important to understand that Project Insight does the calculation for you. So to see where these data values are coming from, what you want to do is just click on the resource name, and that displays our resource layer. And we can click in the blue header bar of that layer and drag it around to reposition it wherever we want. So let's just put it down there for now. And to get these values here, it takes the billable rate for the resource, which is right here. You can see it here. The billable rate is $100. And it multiplies it by the work hours. So it multiplied it by 20 work hours. And that gives us the labor value of this task. And you can see that calculation on the task list. Again, you have your work hours. You have that rate, that work billable rate showing here. And those two get multiplied together, and then that gives you the work billable time. So that work billable time is automatically calculated. And again, remember that we're talking about the labor portion of this task right now. So if we click the X to close that layer, you can also add in non-labor amounts as well, and that's called the work billable expense. So you can see that a work bill of expense of $400 was also entered in for this task. And if you hover on that, you'll get a little note about what that work billable, a little tip that tells you what that work billable expense is. So this is manually entered in. And again, you can just click on the edit icon. You can see that you'll just can manually type in, whatever that amount is. So let's just save that. Then you have your work billable total. And the work billable total basically takes what was calculated for the labor, adds in any expenses that you manually entered in, and then gives you the work billable total. And again, if you hover your cursor on that header bar, it gives you the calculation. So if you forget what it is, you can just hover your cursor and get a reminder. So this work billable total amount represents the amount you should be billing the client if you were doing this work on a time and material basis. So you do want to know this time and materials amount on a fixed price project for several reasons. First, you may want to use this as your bottom-up detailed estimate to determine what your fixed price should be. And secondly, you want to compare it to what you would be billing if you were doing it on a time and materials basis versus a fixed price, so you can see how profitable you're going to be. Of course, the work billable total for all of these detailed tasks gets rolled up to the summary task level to give you the work billable total for the summary task. And it also rolls up to the project level as well. So you can see down here that it rolls up to that project level. So you can see what is the total planned billable work for this entire project as determined by a detailed work breakdown structure, or what the time and materials amount would be. So if you were going to bill this on a time and materials amount, you should be billing a total of $87,810. Now, as indicated, you might want to use this time and materials amount to determine what the fixed price should be. So you could say, the fixed price for this whole entire project should be $87,810. But what you might do is you might actually round that up. So you could maybe round it up to say, hey, we'll charge you $90,000. That gives you a little bit of contingency. And that would be if you're just going to bill one fixed price for the whole entire project. But normally, you're going to bill a fixed price for each kind of deliverable. So in this case, we're going to concentrate on the scope work, and we can see that the total work billable for the scoping work should be $7,720. So you may decide that this is just going to become that fixed price. So let's set the fixed price to be exactly what we calculated from a detailed work breakdown structure. And that's great if that's the case. You've determined a fixed amount on details, so it's going to give you more accuracy in your estimates. So now that you know what the value is and you agree with the customer that this is what you're going to bill them for this phase of the work, then you want to record that amount in a separate field so you have a permanent record of it. And as you know, projects change, and it is possible that this work billable total amount calculated on your actual tasks change over the course of the project. And so you want to make sure that you record what this original amount was at the very beginning and that you agreed with the client in case these amounts do start to change. So to do that, let's go back to the display options, and we're going to scroll down. Let's click on resources because we're going to add in our new columns just before resources. Then we're going to click in our available columns and we're going to enter the letter P. So we go directly to the columns that start with the letter P. And then we want to look for these fields called proposed. So proposed expenses, hours, rate, time, and total. Now, these are, exactly the same as our hours, work billable rate, time, expenses, and total, but it's the proposed amounts. So we're going to put all of those on there. So we're going to put in hours first, then we're going to put our proposed labor rate, then our time, which is our rate, our hours times our rate gives us our time. Then we have any expenses, and then our time plus our expenses gives us our total. So now you can see we've got all of those fields available, and we click the update icon. Now again, you can hover on the header bar and drag those a little bit wider or smaller if all the labels aren't completely showing. And we can even make our name a little bit smaller so we've got everything still displayed on one screen. So you will want to enter your agreed to fixed price amounts on the milestone billing task for this phase. So in this case, it is our scope complete task because that's what we've got set as our milestone task. So to record that, we can go into edit mode, and we can do that either by clicking on the edit icon, or a simpler way is just double-clicking on the white space anywhere on the line. So make sure you don't double-click on the label because that's a hyperlink. You want to click on the white space, and that puts us into edit mode. Then we're going to go and click in our proposed hours column. And what you can do is you can enter the total work hours that you propose to bill for this phase. And you can see very easily what those proposed work hours are from your detailed work breakdown structure. And you just get it by looking at the work hours at the summary task level. So we can see that we've got 64 hours for all of the activities in the scoping task. So we could go ahead and enter that into our proposed hours. Now this doesn't have to be the exact same values. This is the flexibility of Project Insight. You could also add in some contingency hours. So if you think it's going to take 64, but you want to build in some contingency because, as we all know, projects are, when you plan them out, it's all estimating to begin with. So let's actually bump that up to 70 hours, and that gives us a little bit of contingency. So it can be the exact same. So it could be the 64, or you could adjust it up or down if you needed to. Then you have the proposed rate. And again, you can get this proposed rate right from here, right from our work billable rate at the scoping level. And this work billable rate is an average rate that's calculated from all the data in each individual task in that scoping section. So we could put in our $98.75, or maybe we just want to round it up to $100 an hour. Or, again, we could make it even a little bit more. Maybe we want to make it 110, and that's, again, giving us a little bit more contingency. And this, you'll change all these depending on your business process. Some organizations have some set rules for building in contingency and that kind of thing. Now, we're going to leave the proposed time blank because the system's going to automatically calculate that for us by multiplying the proposed hours by the proposed rate. But in the proposed expenses, we do want to put something in there because that is the non-labor portion of the cost of this task, or sorry, not the cost, the non-labor portion of what you're going to bill the client. So let's go ahead and put in $1,000. Now this proposed total is not editable because it is also automatically calculated. So to have those calculations take effect, you need to click on the Save icon. So after you save, it takes the proposed hours, multiplies it by the rate, and you're going to start to get used to this formula. It's used in quite a few places. Then you get the proposed time, or the labor value of the task. Then you add in your expenses, and then you get the total proposed amount for the entire task. So that's $8,700. So that's one way to do it. However, in most cases for a fixed price for a phase of work, you may not actually break it down by like hours and rates. You may just enter in a fixed price for the labor portion and a fixed price for the expense portion. So to see how you would do that, let's click our edit icon and go into edit mode. And we're going to erase the proposed hours and proposed rate. And we're just going to hard code in a proposed amount for our labor. So again, we could bump this up, or we could take our 6320, which was what we got from our work breakdown structure, or we may take this 6320 and just round it up. So, instead of maybe 7,700, we round this up to maybe 6,500. Now, this is where you may have some set rules for building in some contingency. So you could say, like, let's add in a 10% contingency, which is roughly $600. So let's say $600 added onto that, that's $6,920. So instead of $6,920, let's just bump it up. Maybe we add in, make it just an even $7,000 for our labor. And you could also do that for the proposed expense as well. So we could look and see what is our total work billable expense. It's $1,400. Maybe we add in 10% with a little bit of rounding. So let's bump it up to $1,600. So you're roughly adding in a 10% contingency with some rounding in this case. Then again, we click Save, and then it comes up and gives us our proposed total, or $8,600. So that's another way that you can do it. You can just enter in what's your fixed amount for the labor and what's your fixed amount for the expenses. And of course, you could leave one of those blank if you didn't have those applicable to this portion of the project. However, the other scenario is that you don't even break it down by labor and non-labor amounts. You just have a total fixed price. So again, let's double click onto the white space to go into edit mode. We're going to erase both the time and just have expenses. And in the expense amount, we're just going to put the total. So we're going to let's put back in 7,500 and save that. So if you just are putting in a total amount, you're not breaking it down by labor or expenses or using rates or anything like that, then you can just put it in the proposed expense field. Because remember, you can't edit proposed total. That's a calculated field. So just put it in proposed expense. Or, alternatively, you could just stick it in proposed time too. It doesn't really matter to the system. It's just you just want to put that total value in one of those two fields so that you get your proposed total, because that's really what you're going to be looking at. So you'll want to do whatever makes most sense for your organization and come up with some business rules and train people and apply that. But basically, at the end of the day, what you're doing is recording what you've agreed to bill the client in this proposed total amount. And again, that could be exactly what you pulled from your detailed work breakdown structure, or it could be something that's a little bit rounded up and have some contingency added in. Now, all of these fixed price amounts, again, for each individual task, roll up to your summary task, and also roll up to a total for the entire project. So you can see that we are proposing to bill the client $109,800 for this entire project. But our work breakdown structure is telling us that we think it's going to be $87,810 if we were billing them on a time and materials basis. So we do have quite a bit of contingency built into this project. And again, that might vary. If this is a project you've done for other clients, it's very similar to other work you've done for other clients, you might have a less contingency than if it's a project that's got a lot of unknowns in it, a lot of potential risks in it, then you might want to have more of a contingency because you don't know what it's going to look like at the end of the day, or it might change as you progress. So if you're going to be using this amount, then you can also record this at the project level for reporting purposes. Alternatively, for a lot of organizations, fixed price amounts are created outside the project process, and project managers are just given those fixed price amounts and must manage to them. So sometimes organizations don't use like this bottom-up estimating technique to get the fixed price amounts. They come from other means. So if that's the case, you also want to record that as well. And you want to record it not at not just at the individual phase level, but also at the project level. So to do that, we're going to go up and hover on the edit icon and select edit project. And then we're going to click on the target budget information. And actually, I'm going to go back to views because I've already forgotten what that number is because I have a bad memory. So it's 109,800. So let's just write down here our proposed total. So we'll go back to edit and edit the project and click on the target budget information. Now we do have some preset values in here because we chose to bring these preset values that were entered into the template over into our project. But we can change those if we need to. And also only a project manager or a scheduler can edit this data. So this is where you record the total fixed price that your customer agreed to pay for this work. And again, that can come from the fixed price proposed amounts on your work breakdown structure, or it could come from the project externally. So you're going to record it here though as well. So again, you have a permanent record of the total amount in case the project plan changes, and also so you can run variation reports and profitability reports at a project level. So that's a recommended best practice for fixed price projects. So we're going to enter in that 109,800 that we got from our detailed task list and click on Save to save that. Now once all of this is set up, you can view it by clicking on the Views menu option and clicking on Status. And then you'll click on the Budget tab, and you'll see in here you've got your target budget. So that's that amount that we just entered at the project level. And you can see there's a 50,000 that has to do with the costs. But we can see that we are going to bill the client 109,800. And then the line below it shows us what the proposed total is going to be. So this is the number we got from the detailed work breakdown structure, and we've decided in this case that we are going to set them to be the same. Some cases they might not be the same if this target budget came from outside of the project management department. We also have the work billable total, which is this value right here. And that's the amount that you would be billing for the labor and expenses if you were using it as a time and materials project. So you can see all of that data at a project level using that Budget tab. But let's go ahead and click on our Views menu option, and that takes us back to our task list, and it remembers the view that we last had showing and displays it again. So you've now created your plan with your fixed price data. And as the project now gets to be active and starts to progress, your team members are going to go in and they're going to see the tasks that are assigned to them. So Jill's going to see that she's got the determined project scope task assigned to her. And she'll go off and start doing that work. And she'll start recording the actual time that she spends doing that work. Now, tracking time is covered in detail in some other time entry training sessions. So you're just going to see one way to do it in this session. And that is by clicking on the task name. And that takes us to our detailed task form. And on here, you can see some detailed information at the top. But you can also click on this Time tab and enter in your actual hours that you spent working on this. So I'm going to enter in 6 hours. And I think I have to change my time code. So I'm going to put in, let's try administration. I'm not sure if that's the right time code I want to use, but we'll find out. And because I'm logged in as the project manager, and if you are logged in as the project manager, you're going to see some extra data when you're doing this time entry, such as things like the rates applied and the billing hours and billing rates. Your regular team members aren't going to see that. They're basically going to see the actual hours and a description, and potentially this is billable flag. So let's go ahead and let's say yes, it is billable, and save that. And then you can see that our time entry got entered into the system. Then also if we click on the Expense tab, you can enter in the actual expenses as well. So let's put in $500. And again, there is some extra data columns that are coming up because I'm logged in as a project manager, but your team members won't see all of these. They'll just see the ones that they'll be required to enter and deal with. So let's go ahead and click Save for that, and then it creates our expense entry as well. Now, so those are the actuals that we're starting to enter in against the project as the work is being done. And you don't have to come to this detailed task form to see this. You can actually see this on your task list. So to get back to your task list, again, you can hover on Views and select Task List, or you can click right on the Views top-level menu option, which always takes you to the first item in the submenu anyway, so that's our task list. And let's go back to the Display Options icon. And again, we're going to scroll down and we're going to click on our Resources because we're going to put in these new fields right before the Resources column. Then in our Available columns, we're going to scroll down until we get to these columns called Billable. So when you see these columns, these indicate that these are the actual billables that are getting entered into the system. Whereas work billable, those are what you're planning, proposed are what you're billing the customers, and then billable is the actuals that are entered as your team starts to do the work. And again, you'll start to see the pattern here. You have your billable hours times your rate gives you your time, plus your expenses gives you your total. So we're going to click on those in the order that we want, and you can see here on our selected columns, you can see all of those available. And again, some more detail about all of this is covered in the Managing Project Budgets for Professional Services training session. And then we can go and update the display. And then we can use our scroll bar to scroll over and start to see those billables or actuals as they get entered. And again, I can just make those column headers a little bit bigger by dragging them bigger. So we can see that we entered in 6 hours and they were billable to the client at a billable rate of $100 per hour. So that gives us a billable time of $600 plus the expenses of $500 gives us to date $1,100 in total actual. And, we still have more work to do because if we scroll back over, you can see, we're still, that's only 6 hours. We still are expected to do up to 20 hours of work against this. And probably that's most of our billables. We're hoping we're not going to enter more actuals because we're already gone over what we had planned we were going to bill the client. So these will, as your project is in progress, these actual ones, the billable actuals, are going to be less than what you planned until you get this task completed. And then you're hoping that they're going to be fairly close to being the same. Now, once you've set up this view of the financial data that you want, you can save it so that you can easily switch to that view when you're doing this type of activities. And then you can actually use this view on other projects as well. And that's going to save you time and ensure you're following your business process. So go ahead and click on the display options. And when you're in your column selection options section, to save this view, you want to come over to this quick selection area and then click on this edit icon. And that puts us into edit mode and allows us to enter in the name of our view. So we're going to type in fixed price view, and then we're going to click that save icon to save it. So now you can easily click in the drop-down for your quick selection and switch your task view to this view that you created. And this view is going to be available for any project that you work on going forward. Now to update that, again, you just click on that update display icon. And that view is saved. And you can see that there is a lot of data that's showing on the screen, and you can use your scroll bar to scroll around on it. And if we expanded out some of our other tasks, you'll see that you've got a lot of data both vertically now and horizontally. So what you can do is, to make this a little bit more viewable, is you can first of all right-click on the blue header bar and you can toggle to full screen. So you can actually remove all of the headers and menu options so that you're almost looking at this as more of a spreadsheet format. And if you also right-click, and I suggest to do this when you're on the name column because you want to freeze our name column so we always know which task we're referring to. So right-click and then say freeze header and left panes. And then that puts in a bar here so that if you're scrolling, so we've got to use our scroll bar, it freezes your left pane. And also if you're scrolling up and down, it freezes your top column labels. And then again, you can either right-click or double-click to toggle that to full screen. So that gives you some tips and tricks for how you can start navigating through data when you have a lot of data elements like we have on this view. But for now, I'm going to double-click to put it back to regular mode here. And I'm just going to refresh our page. And all of this data, we can view it on our task list view, but we can also run portfolio level reports and see this data as well. So let's go up and click on our reports menu option. And we want to click on our projects report if it's not already expanded out. Now it remembers that the last time we were in here, we actually did run project reports, so it remembers that and brings up the project reports section. And it's also giving us a listing of all of our currently saved reports. If we want to just keep our screen a little bit cleaner, we can click on My Save Reports to collapse that. And again, just click on it to expand it again if you want to see previous saved reports. But we'll collapse it. And then we're going to click Create Project Report. Then in the column selection options, we're going to expand that section out by clicking on it. And then in the available columns, actually in the selected columns, we're going to get rid of everything except the name. So I'm just going to basically double-click on individual ones, and I'm also going to click on the first one, hold down the Shift key and click on the end one, and then click on the left arrow to remove it. That's another way. And then I'm going to add in just the financial metrics that we've been having a look at. So I'm going to add in the proposed total first of all. So I'm going to click in the available columns and type in the letter P to go to proposed. And then I have my proposed total, so I'm double-clicking on that, which is what you agreed to bill the client based on each milestone. Then we're also going to go right down to the very bottom, and we're going to scroll up a little bit till we see work billable total. Double-click on that, and that is the total amount. You would be billing this based on the project plan or the time and materials amounts if you were doing it for a time and materials project. Then I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the B's, and I'm going to click on billable total, and that's the actual total label and hard costs as they're entered. And I'm going to click on that because I actually want to reposition it below the work billable total. And then I'm going to find, lastly, our target billable total and double-click on that. And that's the high-level target amount for billing the client. And if you need any help on any of these, you can highlight all of those fields and click on the Show Tooltip for selected columns, and it comes up and tells you what all of those columns are and how they're calculated. So if you need a little bit more information, that can help you out. But for now, let's click on Run Report. And it comes up and gives us our information that we selected. And again, I'm just going to make our column headers a little bit bigger. And so we can see, what the proposed amounts are, the work billable totals, the target budget, target billable total, and then the actual billable total as well. And then I'm going to save that report, and I'm going to call it Fixed Price Projects. And then we could share this with others as well if we click on the Share tab. And then you can click in any of the drop-downs to choose who you want to share it with. You can choose it with individual users, different groups that were set up, or even different companies. And of course, if you share it with somebody, they're still only going to be able to see the data they have access to. So if you shared this portfolio level report with financial data with a team member who didn't have access to see that, they're not going to see any of these dollar values. So it always retains the security and permissions set up in the system with any reports that you save. Now you can enter in a description. So if you want to put a little bit more detail about what this report is and does, and you could also schedule it by clicking on the Schedule tab. And all of that is covered in some other training sessions. So for now, let's go ahead and just click Save. Tells us the report has been saved, and it's now available with one-click access from anywhere in the system. So if we hover on the Reports menu option, and we go to the Project Reports section, we'll see that this Fixed Price Projects report is now available in our quick link to our reports. And again, you can just click on it to run it. And that's going to give you this real-time view of the project fixed price data. And that helps you to track your fixed price deliverables, your plan values, or your plan billable if you were doing a time and materials project. Now, a couple of other types of report that you may want to have a look at are something like a planned profit report. And this report was already created, so we just have to go to our reports, our project reports, and click on Planned Profit Report. And this shows you the planned profit amounts for each of your projects in your portfolio so that you can see, which ones are going to be the most profitable. And then also what the overall profitability or average profitability of all your projects are going to be as well. So maybe you have some target goals for that, and you can see if that's what you're trying to meet. And you can click on that field name to actually sort by that. So now you're sorting it in order by least profitable to most profitable. If you click on that label again, it changes it so that you're still sorting, but it's showing you the most profitable projects first. All right, let's go back to our reports and have a look at a couple of other reports here in the last few minutes we've got remaining. This time we're going to have a look at our fixed price performance chart. And this report is useful in that it shows you the total amount you agreed to bill the client, which is our column here called target billable total. So this is what we agreed to bill the client versus what the estimated time and materials amount estimated at completion would be. So that's this column here, which is our yellow column. We can tell that by our legend. So this is broken down by client. So it's not showing us individual projects. It's showing us the data per client. So we can see that here we've got, customer ABC. And you can see that here's what the target billable amount was versus what we think we're going to bill at completion versus our time and material amounts. So that's actually a good thing. Our target billable is more than our work estimate at completion. But for customer DEF, it's actually reversed. So we're only going to be billing them $165,000, but our work billable estimate at completion is actually $177,640. So that means we're actually going over what we agreed to. So that's a very helpful report, and you can use that to help monitor your projects and see what they're going to be looking like at the end of the day. So all those reports were created from data and saved for easy access, and you can go in and create your own reports if you require as well. Now the final piece of this to keep in mind is that when you end up going to invoice clients, that's going to be all covered in an invoice training session. But that's where you learn how to track how much you're actually charging the customer versus how much you planned, how much you spent, and then how much you also invoiced. And you can keep all of that data and track all of that data and report on all of that data. And that's how you manage fixed price projects with Project Insight. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand this back over to Denise for some closing slides. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and type those into your questions box. So Denise.
Thank you, Angie. All right, guys, so for those of you on social media, I'd like to invite you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media sites. Our handle on Twitter is @ProjectInsight. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're not already a Project Insight user and would like to learn more, please feel free to contact us via phone, email, or request your demo at projectinsight.net. In our Project Insight community, you'll find many recorded videos and webinars for you to watch and learn from. You can sign up for your next product training, project management training, which is tomorrow at 8 a.m. If you have not already registered for that, I encourage you to do so. It'll be based on emotional intelligence. And for those of you seeking to gain PDUs, this is the one to attend. So with that said, that is all we have for you today. We'd like to thank Angie for a great session, and of course, we'd like to thank our audience for your time, and we do hope to have you on board next time. Thank you so much, and have a great day.